my name is Nadine Bernard, and we are here in the kitchen with the Halifax Public Libraries in the beautiful Sackville kitchen here. So today we are cooking garden vegetable. In the middle of garden season, these are a lot of the varieties of vegetables that you have that you can pick right out of the garden. So we have on the ingredient list today, we have turnip, we have celery, sweet potato, some carrots, beautiful bright colored carrots, some zucchini, an onion, and then in our canned ingredients here we have no salt added diced tomatoes, and we have white kidney beans and dark kidney beans. I like to mix the both because I love to have the garden vegetable be appealing to the eye. So, you know, with all the colors and it being vibrant, not only with it smelling absolutely amazing with all the mix of flavors from all the vegetables, just having all those multicolors is I find really enticing for you to want to eat. And then the seasoning that we put in here are Italian seasoning and bay leaf. And this week I am going to be using the bouillon cubes. Last week I had, on the last episode, I had used the box of stock. So this time I'm using the bouillon. It's cheaper. It comes in a box. It's $1 a box for the 6. So which is pretty ideal for people to buy and use. It goes a long way, and it works pretty great. So we're going to start off by cutting up the vegetable that's the hardest to cut first, and that's the turnip. So I like to peel my turnips, peeling off first, and then cutting it in half, and then keep having it until it's down to probably about the size of like a little part of a chocolate bar, so little squares. So I used to peel rutabaga with a knife, like a paring knife, but I found that using just the least amount of tools to be used, utensils in the kitchen, is better. So the majority of the things in front of me, I'll need a carrot peeler, so the peeler here, so just easier. And a small rutabaga is more than enough. It has like a peppery kind of taste to it that adds to the garden vegetable. And once it mixes all together, it is absolutely delicious. It's a family favorite in my home. And when I first started doing these workshops with different families, I'd have parents come in and say, oh my goodness, my children are not going to eat that. My children don't like this, and my children don't like that. And, you know, the purpose of doing hands-on workshops is, and then to leave with the meals already prepped, is that they can try it every week. And it's up to you, right? Like, these are the variety of vegetables that I chose to go into it, but garden vegetable soup is anything from the garden, so it could be any vegetable that you'd like to choose. So if you prefer not to put in something and replace it with something else, substitute it with a different vegetable, you're more than welcome to it. And it becomes your own. Cooking is all about uniqueness and just, you know, inspiring you for what you can make with what you have. So the turnip is done. And I find the smaller turnips are a lot easier to work with. I find when you start getting into those larger size turnips, they're really firm and they're really, really hard to work with. And they're a little intimidating to then cook with. Just the smell from the freshly cut vegetable is making my stomach growl right now. And vegetables, garden vegetables, are a great way to put protein in without having to add any meat products. So the legumes here we have the kidney beans, and the dark kidney beans and the white kidney beans, you know, have tons of fiber and protein right in there. And there's tons of fiber within the vegetables itself, so it goes a lot further. You know, you won't be hungry in an hour. It helps your digestive system. You know, with all the stuff that you have in front of you, you limit the amount of sodium that you put into your body, because you know, 77% of our sodium intake is from packaged food and things that we add to our our meals. So I'm pretty happy with the sizes of them now. So they're just kind of mixed. They don't need to be like uniform or anything. All the different sizes are perfectly fine. It's just that once you get them to that size, they cook more evenly and faster. And the great thing about using all these vegetables in your ingredients is having all the peelings available to make your own vegetable broth. Just gonna start to peel the zucchini. Zucchini is very similar in its taste to a cucumber. Texture is pretty much the same too. The seeds within, and the smaller the zucchini, so more like anything. I think anything below 8 inches and smaller. There's a lot better of a taste within them. The larger the zucchini are, they have more. They lose their taste, and they're actually the larger zucchini are better for saving seeds for when you want to grow your own. And zucchini grows in abundance. We have, my goodness, probably like 4 zucchini plants, and on one alone I have like 10 growing from it. So I'm supposed to be making a zucchini boat for supper this weekend because we just have so many zucchinis growing in our garden. And zucchini is a really wonderful, versatile vegetable. Zucchini, if you were to peel it with a peeler, you could make zucchini pasta. I've made zucchini muffins with shredded from a cheese grater, shredded zucchini with chocolate chips and any kind of cake mix, and it's absolutely delicious. It's wonderful to work with. I always use it in my pastas when I'm making spaghetti sauce. So even though it grows in abundance, it does not go to waste in our home. And it doesn't have to be totally peeled either. And you could leave the peelings on. The peelings are just as edible and they don't have any bitter taste to it. I just prefer for this recipe to peel it. And the textures are pretty small, so you would just cut it probably a little bit thicker than 2 Tonys together. The texture, the width of it probably would come about this thick. And then you can see inside, like the seeds are all in there for a little bit of flavoring. And the zucchini, to take off the skin, really absorbs the flavors that are all in the recipe. And so the zucchini becomes the sponge of the recipe. So just kind of taking in all the onions, the carrots, the celery, because celery is really strong. The sweet potato, the seasoning in there, and the tomato, the diced tomatoes as well. I think the favorite thing I like about garden vegetable is how quick and easy it is. And at home, I would have my children or my granddaughter helping me with it because they're just easy vegetables to be peeling and working on and doing it together. And it cooks relatively fast. It's probably within 40 minutes, everything will be cooked in full. So let's go. And it goes a long way, so it's you don't need much in your bowl for it to fill you and keep you full for a while because of all the fiber that's within the vegetables and the kidney beans. When I first started teaching my granddaughter how to peel carrots in the kitchen, she used to peel it with a spoon backward, and just kind of rubbing off the kind of top layer of the skin on the carrot, just to kind of reveal the brighter orange within the carrot. And that was just to teach her the simplicities of practice, right? So to get used to having a utensil in her hand and getting used to the utensil with the texture of the vegetable that she's using. So I would show her how to use the back of the spoon onto the carrot, and then showing her on a similar vegetable where the skin can kind of slide off a lot easier. And then we would move up to other utensils like a butter knife and turning its the duller part of the butter knife, and then being able to start to rub off the skin of potatoes, kind of light skinned potatoes. And then we started moving on to other vegetables. So as she got older and had more confidence in the kitchen, then we moved to knife safety and talking about keeping your hand a good distance from the sharper edges of utensils in the kitchen, whether it be a peeler or a knife. So putting your hand in a safe distance away from where you're cutting or where you're peeling. So now she can cut, the celery. She can cut any of the meats to add to our recipes. And it's nice to do that type of sharing and education in the kitchen. I think exposing your children early in life about the familiarity of utensils and cooking in the kitchen is important for them. It builds their confidence. And kitchen has tons of educational learning with it. Measuring, following directions, watching, as things are being added and as it's cooking, changing color, changing texture. And then it stimulates all our senses as well. I talked about before how cooking should be a 5-sense experience. So between the smell, between the sound, between what you see, between how it tastes, it's all a learning experience. So the more exposure, you're increasing their knowledge base around food and understanding, greater understanding of food security and being able to feed themselves and having appreciation for food. We are a generation of huge food waste. And so without kind of the appreciation in the kitchen around the practice of it. So if they were a part of peeling and making the meal for their family, and then we talk about the peelings, right? So you take the peelings and you would save them up and you would freeze them until you need it to make the vegetable broth, and then you would boil them on the oven on a separate day, simmer it for about 20 to 25 minutes, add your seasoning to it, your Italian seasoning and your bay leaf. And then you have your broth there for future recipes, which saves you money. And then once it's been taken down, boiled down, then you would use it for a compost for your garden. So just minimizing the waste of food and making your food go a lot longer and further in the kitchen, because it's always nice to find different ways to save money. With the cost of food today, I remember when I first started doing workshops like this, people would always tell me, my goodness, it's so expensive to eat healthy. I could not, buy all those things and feed my family, and it could not go a long way. Well, it's between knowing what to add to it to make your food go further, but it's also too of when you're buying your bag of carrots, right? And you probably get about a dozen or so carrots in the bag. So each recipe should, because there's such high sugar content in carrots, you should only be putting around 3 at most in your recipes anyway. And then even with the celery stalks too, right? So putting about 2 in there. So a bag of carrots and a bag of onions, celery, potatoes, onions will go probably about 7 meals moving forward, because you would just use the minimal amount for each of your recipes. Carrots cook pretty fast, so they don't need to be overly thick. A little bit thicker than a toonie as well. I used to add the diced tomatoes to the recipe when I first started making it, and then I learned that tomatoes actually slow down how fast your vegetables cook within when it's being cooked. So you want to add the diced tomatoes completely last to your recipe. Things you learn as you start experimenting in the kitchen. Because I would wonder, like, why hasn't my recipe cooked in time. Like it's been on low, sitting in the slow cooker for 8 hours all day, and my vegetables seem to be still really firm, like they're not cooked. And so I had done some research and stuff, and I had learned it was the diced tomatoes being added to it. So once you add, it's because of the acidic that's within the tomatoes. That's what slows down the cooking of the vegetables within the recipe. And because these don't need to be cooked, they don't need to be added in the beginning. They're something that you add in the end. Oh. There's always a casualty of a vegetable. That's what I get for not chopping it right. So sweet potato. What I have learned about working with sweet potato is they come in lots of shapes and sizes, but what I like to do is pick the sweet potato that has the least amount of grooves in there. Kind of a straighter edge as possible. I mean, you get a lot that kind of have a lot of funky different shapes and sizes of it, but this way if you do that, the skin comes off so much easier, right? So you have lesser chance of maybe cutting yourself or being kind of aggravated that it doesn't go smoothly, and it's quicker to work with in the kitchen. So if once you put your peeler down on it, there's a nice smooth flow through, and the peelings come off nice and easy. You might be asking, why are you using a sweet potato? I don't buy sweet potato. I've never had sweet potato. And why not use a regular potato? You can use a regular potato, but the sweet potato has, just like it says in its name, has more of a sweeter taste to it. So I find when you're trying to encourage more variety and garden variety within diets of people, the flavor is really important. So regular potatoes have no flavoring or just kind of a starchier flavor to it, and again it's just a white inside and no coloring, and I find the extra color and the flavoring of the sweet potato just really makes for the garden vegetable soup to be tastier. So sweet potatoes also are a lot firmer than a regular potato, so I always like to tell people to practice better safety with it, using a solid, kind of a thicker knife here, and make sure it's sharp. And if it isn't sharp, to try to sharpen it if you have something at home to cut it through. Otherwise, it's really easy to for it to kind of turn, and especially if there's a knot within the potato, it can shift your knife to be moving, and it could then be dangerous. So sweet potato, we like to have them kind of look like the same shape as the turnip. So just like little quarters. And like a regular potato, it cooks in like 20-25 minutes. So pretty much all the vegetables in here cook relatively fast. I'm very tempted to eat the sweet potato. I really, really love sweet potato. It's a great snack. And it puts to sleep that sweet tooth that I have. So I just tell myself this is a Kit Kat bar. So I'm just keeping the firmer vegetables with the firmer, and then the softer with the softer. It doesn't really matter. It's all going into the same pot anyway. But I just separate them within the pots together. So the last thing is the onion, the vegetable that's the least appealing to work with, but the flavoring is just you can't compare. If you cook without an onion, you've just totally changed the flavoring of your recipe. So I add onion in just about everything that I cook. And when I want to trick my family, I make them really small and I cook them first before I add them to the recipe. Same with garlic as well. I usually would pick the garlic and the onions together. Put them with a little bit of oil on the stove and let them cook up right before they brown. Like you just want them to be a little bit see-through. good trick for those moms and dads out there that want to, for the picky eaters that don't like their onions, just cook them before you add them to your recipe. So the strong bitterness will be taken out, but you still get the flavoring, and then the onion then opens up its pores and it really absorbs all the seasoning flavoring that you put within your recipe. So I'm just cutting it down the sides so that they're relatively small, something about a little smaller than like a safety pin, something pretty small. Once it gets to the edges, it's a little bit harder to work with, especially with the kind of slimy skin that gets removed. So just take your time when it gets to the end. So even if you want to lay it down flat and then kind of cut it on its side instead of standing up and then trying to motion your knife through, if you want to put it down, it's a lot safer too. Like you just lay it down flat and then you would just kind of cut through the onion on its side, which is just as fine. The garden vegetable recipe, I really kind of stress people to use an 8-quart slow cooker or a larger pot if you have one, and if you don't, to use one of those kind of turkey roasting pans that you have. So the vegetables in here that you put in here, so for a recipe like this would feed a family of between 5 and 6 multiple times too. So not only will it be for that supper, but it can also, the leftovers can be used for lunch for the next day too. Or if you wanted to kind of spice it up the next day and you wanted to add beef to it, then it becomes like a beef stew recipe. But the vegetables take up a lot of room, so you need something that can really handle all the vegetables in there. Like you can see here, this is with the 4 carrots, the 2 small zucchinis, and 1 medium-sized onion. This is, I guess you'd call it between a small and medium-sized bowl, but it's pretty full already, so just adding that to the pot. And same with the sweet potato and the rutabaga, the turnip here. So it's just all the way through here, adding that to the pot as well. And now I would add my beans. It's also encouraged too to, once you open up your beans, to rinse off your beans in the can, because there's sodium usually in there, even though it would say that there's no salt added. They put something in there to preserve, have longer preserving of the beans within the can. So it's good to just clean it off of the preservative that's within the can before you add it to your recipe. So I'm just going to go and rinse these right quick. The diced tomatoes, you don't have to drain it, you would just add it all together. And it doesn't really matter which diced tomatoes you use. I prefer to add anything that says no salt added. Like I had mentioned earlier, 77% of our sodium intake comes from just canned or packaged food. So, and then on top of that, we usually, by habit or by influence of society, add salt to our food, and that's something, it's a learned behavior. It's not something you're born with. So especially if you see, family members around you adding salt to it. So on top of that, we definitely exceed our sodium intake, and sodium does, horrible things, really hard things to inside of our body. So hard on your kidneys and hard on a lot of your organs, your heart, your blood pressure and stuff. So it's to try to reduce the amount of sodium as possible. Try to go towards products that have no salt added to it. So I'm just going to rinse off these kidney beans and I'll be right back. So just a light water rinse is just perfect for it. So like I had said, I like to mix the white kidney beans with the red kidney beans. Just look at the coloring in there. It's just beautiful. And then when you have everything all mixed together, it's just so appeasing to the eye. And all the smell from the kidney beans is wonderful as well. So the Italian seasoning, we add a tablespoon and a half of Italian seasoning. So Italian seasoning is just a mixture of like rosemary, oregano, thyme, savory, sage, and oregano, and basil. So just having it kind of all together like that has, you know, tons of flavoring that go into it. So just adding that to the pot. And mix with all the flavoring within the vegetables. And once it starts cooking and boiling, it's an amazing smell in your kitchen, and you will love it. I add the 1 bay leaf to it. And again, as a reminder, once you're before you serve your meal, just remove the bay leaf from it. And in this recipe, it's 6 to 8 cups of vegetable broth to it. But I'm just using the 2 bouillon cubes and then adding the 8 cups of water. The near finished product, I mean, it's not going to look much different from this. Besides, the vegetables, once they start to cook, they just lose a little bit of their coloring in there. So, but this will look pretty much exactly the same once it is cooked. But look at all that color and that vibrancy. I love it. You know, the mixing, I used to just use the red kidney beans, but I started to mix it up probably about a year in when I started to do my workshops, and that you know, that coloring of everything all mixed together, the zucchini there, the green, the sweet potato, orange, and the carrots, the turnips in there, and then once you add all the seasonings to it, it's just beautiful. And before it even boils, it smells absolutely amazing. So right before you would serve this, you would add the diced tomatoes to the recipe. Once you make sure the vegetables cook through, which takes probably a half an hour for it to cook at a good boil. So you'd bring your, so if you're cooking it on the pot, I would bring it to a good boil, and then I would turn it down to about 4 or 5 for a good simmer for about another 10 more minutes. But if it's in a slow cooker, you could put it on low for 8 hours for the day, or you can put it on high for 4 hours. So right before you serve, that's when you would add your diced tomatoes, kind of mix it all together. And then it brings that nice, beautiful redness. It's kind of a soupy look to it, and it's absolutely amazing. You will love this. This is one of our family favorites as well. So thank you so much for this, and I can't wait for you guys to try this recipe. Thanks. Have a great day.